All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Gatekeeping. This week, I am joined by my friend Florencio. Hi, Florencio.
Hi, what's up? How you been?
I've been good. How have you been?
I've been
You've been
I've been
around?
okay. Not recently. I'm like
No,
stuck in
that's
the
not.
middle of nowhere.
What do you mean, not recently?
Well,
I
having
didn't
to
mean
meet
around as
it.
in
My
around.
God. Okay. Oops.
That's
Okay.
not what I meant. I meant
Okay.
you've been around as in you've been traveling.
Well, it's more work than travel, but every now and then when I have the chance, I just go somewhere.
So where have you been lately?
I'm in the middle of nowhere in Texas called Pecos. It's supposed to be like a cowboy desert out here, and I'm here for 6 months.
Oh, I was gonna say you're traveling. You're there right now. Like you're still out.
Yeah, no, I'm not. Well, I'm away from home, but I'm working. This is a 6 month contract.
Okay, okay.
Mhm.
And what are you doing now? I know before weren't you working in like social work?
So I still do social work. Right now, I'm a lead clinician at a immigrant children's shelter here
Oh,
in Pecos. Yeah.
okay, okay, okay. So I'm not sure if you watched any of the episodes before. It's fine if you haven't. I know it's probably not. But I had an episode 2 episodes ago called the
Hmm.
dating episode where I actually talked about you because I don't know if you
Ooh.
remember.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you remember, and I don't know if I even told you, but you
Uh-huh.
were actually the first person I went on a date with when I moved to the Valley.
Ah, that's cute. I didn't know that.
Okay, and that was 2015, I believe, because I moved down here
Hmm.
in 2015. So I think I started dating that same year here.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, you were actually the very first date, and I told a story about how um I got pulled over right after
Hmm.
because my tail light was out and somebody hit my car while we were there at the bar. Do you remember that?
I don't
Probably not. It's
know.
been a while.
Yeah, it's been pretty long.
Yeah. All right. Well, today the topic is being Latino. Obviously, we have some experience in that because
A lot.
we're we're obviously Latino.
Mhm.
The very first thing I want to get into about it because it we need to know where we stand on it is how do you feel about the whole Latinx conversation about like switching it?
Oh, oh, okay. Interesting question. How do I feel about Latinx? I feel that it's a good concept, a great concept even. Whoever wants to identify, as Latinx, go for it. It requires a lot of knowledge and exposure to know what that means. I know that a lot of people think it's ridiculous, but I think it's good to have inclusivity. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's I think it's good. I don't have any concerns or issues with Latinx. It's inclusive, so if it includes everyone and it's a terminology that's gonna be good for everyone, then by all means, I'm all for it.
Yeah. My rebuttal to that is not that I'm against it. Live your life,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
identify however you want to identify. My
Hmm.
rebuttal to that though is that and maybe I'm ignorant to the fact, but
Hmm.
Latino to me had always seemed like an inclusive uh
Hmm.
what would be the word for it? Hmm, I don't know, category of people. Like to me, Latino wasn't female, male,
Hmm.
or non-binary. It was just Latino. If you were Latino, you were Latino, you know. So
Hmm.
I don't really understand that concept, and maybe it's not a concept for me to understand. Um, but that's just how I felt. I always felt like it was just a broad term.
Hmm. Well, with the Spanish language, everything either ends in or a, so it
Mhm.
divides the sexes. Like Latino is for a male and Latina is for a female. So when you have people that don't conform to society's gender roles or gender expression or anything like that, if you have, like, for example, a trans individual who is Hispanic, um, or Latino or Latina, if they're male but they identify as female, they go with the term either Latinx or Latina, depending on how they feel. So I think it's just the inclusivity of it. I don't think it has any negative repercussions. And, my philosophy in life is always going to be, whatever works for you works for you. And not towards you. It's just like, I mind my business, so I expect other people to
Oh
mind their
yeah, for
business.
sure.
Yeah. So that's why I'm like, Latinx. Oh, cool. I identify as Latino. If I'm in a space where Latinx is being utilized, then I'll adapt to it or adopt it just because of the social scenario that I find myself in.
Yeah, I'm never gonna call anybody out on it and be like, well, actually, I mean, blah blah blah. It's like I'm not gonna be the same people
Yeah.
that do that to like
hmm
people that use they them pronouns.
Yeah.
It's just I'm
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I feel because in Mexico, for example, there's a drag show called La Más Draga. It's a YouTube channel. It's really great. It has 4 seasons. I know that they don't use the Latinx. I feel it's more of an American colloquialism, and for them, it's not Latino or Latina. It's Latine, or
oh yeah, I've heard about that as well. I was gonna
yeah.
actually include that in the
hmm
conversation. I was gonna say Latinx, Latine, because I've also heard that one
Latine.
as well.
Yeah. So it's just a term. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. I just feel it's like, if it works for you, it works for you. If it doesn't, mind your business.
Do you feel like it'll become uh mainstream, or not mainstream, but like the way of identifying?
Nope. I don't see that happening for the next maybe 50 to 100 years, just because uh, the Spanish language is something that doesn't really change, um, or hasn't changed much. It's just part of our culture. I don't see it being adopted um, quickly per se by society or universal or anything. I think it's more of identity and who you vibe with. If you vibe with a group of people who are, um, you know, gender non-conforming or stuff like that, then for their space and for them feeling inclusive, they'll use it. But I don't see it changing like worldwide anytime soon.
Yeah. So, and also to like kind of not piggyback off that, but I feel like the whole Latinx conversation is a very like generational thing. Like it's
hmm
because of the generation that we're in now. So another topic that I feel like has been popularized because of this whole like the new generation of
hmm
the youth has been this whole like the no sabo kid trend.
The no sabo kid, of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
to be a no sabo kid. And I
Uh-huh.
okay, so how do you feel about people or people from the Latino community who don't speak Spanish fluently? Like, how do you feel? Well, let me just say that. How do you feel about that?
Uh-huh. How do I feel about that? I feel that, if it's a generational thing. For example, me, I'm a first generation American. I grew up in a Hispanic household. Solamente hablamos español todo el tiempo. Si yo hablaba inglés, mi abuela, mi abuela me hacía así.
Oh,
So, so for me, it's always been like Spanish. I know Spanish because I grew up with it. But when you have a generational household who's not a first generation American, that they've been here for like 2 generations, like at that moment, I feel that the Spanish language is not important for them because they're not surrounded by people who practice it anymore. I feel that it's a little bit of a bummer for me personally, just because if I were to have children, I want my children to know Spanish just because it's very useful everywhere in the workforce and it opens many doors. Um, but I don't have any. How do I feel about the no sabo kids? They're trying. They're trying, and
okay, so
that's what matters.
I'm actually a no sabo kid, I guess.
Uh huh.
I mean I understand Spanish like
hmm
almost 100%, but and I speak it somewhat to a degree. Like I can get by, but the thing
hmm
is, like for me, my my grandma told my mom when we were younger for her not to teach us how to speak Spanish or not to like not to teach us because we understood it obviously,
Yeah, like
but
don't enforce it.
yeah, don't enforce it and don't focus so much on it because she thought that we would
Hmm.
be discriminated like in the school
Okay.
system.
Hmm.
So that's why we weren't really taught that because she also
Yeah.
wanted to avoid us from going into like the I don't know what they're called, the ESL classes or ES.
ESL classes. Yeah.
Yeah, so she wanted us to avoid that, so we weren't really taught as much. So
Hmm.
like now I do wish, especially living here in the valley, I wish I was
Yeah.
more like fluent in
Hmm.
speaking it 100% because it's very awkward for me like to
Yeah.
talk it. Like I know what
Hmm.
I want to say, but I can't say it all the time. But my biggest
Okay.
issue with that whole subject is that I a lot of people like to kind of try to gatekeep us out of the Latino. They feel like they
Hmm.
make us feel as if we're less Latino because we can't speak the language perfectly, and it's
Yeah.
like they try to diminish our Latino ness.
Uh-huh. I feel that's very subjective to where you're at. So, for example, you mentioned, where you grew up. Where did you grow up?
No, I grew up here.
In the valley?
Yeah. So I was born in the valley, and when my grandma
Uh-huh.
told my mom that I was in the valley, I was going to school in the valley. Later on, I did
Mhm.
move to South Georgia, so that's a more predominantly
Okay.
English speaking area.
Yeah.
But that happened while we were here in the valley.
Oh, okay. Well, did your grandma know that you guys were moving to Georgia?
No,
No. Okay.
couldn't predict
Well, I
that.
mean, I don't. Is she a first generation American, or
Um,
is she Mexican nationality?
no, she's American. She was born here. I don't know when was the first person
Hmm.
that was like actually born here.
Okay.
So I'm not
So
too
you're
sure.
so then, for example, your grandma was born in the States, your mother was born in the States, and so were you.
Yeah.
So it's like touching back on what I said, it's if you're not a first generation American, it gets lost, just because I feel that there's a lot of fear from our parents, grandparents, that they don't want us to go through something, like you said, discrimination or anything like that, which I feel in the Valley you probably wouldn't go through it. But in other states up north where it's, mostly um, white dominated or black dominated, Spanish is a trigger for most people. So, I think it was done out of a place of fear, um, which is not a bad thing. They were just trying to protect you and make sure that you had the best opportunities.
Hmm. And I don't think back then, which was like the 90s, I don't think back
Hmm.
then they could have anticipated like how the country has come a long way, and I don't
Hmm.
think they would have anticipated that how much different cultures would have been embraced
Hmm.
like now. Like back then, it was different. The world was different.
Yeah, it was.
But so speaking of like being discriminated, well, obviously on my part, right? That was the reason.
Hmm.
I feel like so this is another conversation I like to have is that
Hmm.
being Latino, we don't a lot of the times we don't realize, or sometimes we do and we call it out, but there's a
Hmm.
lot of racism and colorism in the community and within our families. And I feel like that's a big issue that we look over a lot,
Hmm.
and people kind of like to throw it under the rug. But I feel like it's something that needs to be addressed more often than not.
Yes. So I actually went through that myself. I have 5 nieces and nephews, and am I allowed to switch between English and Spanish, or you prefer
Oh,
to have it in American?
I mean, you can do whatever.
Okay, I can
It's
do
gonna be
whatever.
a
Okay.
struggle for the people that don't speak Spanish, but
Okay. No, I'll keep it in English. I can bring it in
no,
English. Okay,
no,
so
no. This
okay,
is a
so
Latino episode. Like,
okay, we'll do Latino then. Tengo cinco sobrinos y sobrinas, and my mom, uh, the first niece that was born was white complected, like really white. We're talking like brunette hair and colored eyes. And I was like, whose kid is that? Because both of y'all ain't white. but recessive genes or whatever it was, I don't know.
Pause on that, but colored
Mhm,
eyes on maybe because she was probably like whiter complexion.
mhm.
Color eyed on Latinos creep me out.
Yeah.
It freaks
And
me out.
when that happened, I was like, okay, she's a beautiful baby and everything, right? Come the second child for my sister, she is the complete opposite. Jet black straight hair and morena, she was brown, like brown.
Not you saying the baby was beautiful and then saying come the second child it was the opposite.
Well,
That's not what you.
wait, okay,
Yeah,
yeah. So, she was equally as beautiful and everything, but what I noticed is that there was some kind of favoritism. Maybe my mother didn't see it, maybe my dad didn't see
yeah.
it, but I saw it, and I was like, um, you have two granddaughters, right? And she's like, "Why do you say that?" I was like, "I just feel that you prefer a little bit more the you know, Debbie, her name's Debbie." And she was like, no, and this and that. And after that, we didn't talk about it afterwards, but she started to, maybe it was me, maybe it was my biases, maybe I looked too much into it. I don't know. But after that, she was very attentive to my niece, Alessandra. Uh, and sometimes it is important to call out colorism within our households. And but like you said, it's not even like within our households, everyone, or maybe I'm generalizing, I don't know, but you see a white person with color eyes and you see a brown person with normal brown eyes, immediately the person's going to turn to look at the white person.
Yeah, they're the ones that are
And
deemed more attractive,
yes, by societal standards and whatnot. So I just think we have to be very aware of how we are with our biases. But I do see that colorism. I don't know if you remember, you know who Yalitza Aparicio is? And is this just touching bases on
I'm a no
colorism?
sabo kid,
No,
so
no sabo. Okay, so Yalitza Aparicio actually won an award or was nominated for an award for her Netflix film called Roma, which takes
oh
place
yeah, yeah,
in the
yeah,
city of Mexico City. She has made it big time. She's been on Vogue. She's been on multiple magazines. She's modeled, expensive clothing and everything. She was the national attention for quite some time within, the Hispanic community or Latino community. And Sergio Goyri, which is another actor in Mexico, white complected, he could pass off as a white man. Um, he was, having dinner at some restaurant or at some house, and he called her very ugly names. Dijo pinche India, and I feel it's just a reflection of how uh, seated is the colorism. Um, and after that, like, he was basically, how do you say that when you're shamed on Twitter?
cancel.
Forgot, canceled. He was canceled, and I've never heard of him again. And it just comes to show that it's very ingrained within our brains, and we just have to be very careful, or be aware of it when it happens and call it out when it happens.
Yeah, because even like it, it's so crazy how like in America we see it as like well, it's a bigger issue in America is like the black and white issue, and you know
Hmm.
how that's racism to the black community, whatever. Not whatever, that's an important issue, but also like it's so crazy to see how that goes into other countries because that racism exists in other
Hmm.
countries as well, and it just
Yeah.
manifests itself in different ways, like the colorism in our community.
Hmm.
And like you were saying about how that actress, I do know who you're talking about now. That actress, it's like because even in Mexico, even with the
Hmm.
Spanish programming from over there, we're not exposed to dark skinned Mexican actresses. Even in like the
Or not.
novelas and stuff, they're all
Hmm.
they're all white complected.
Yeah.
And it's like those are our people. That's not what my grandma looks like. That's not what my mom looks like, my tia,
Hmm.
So like we're not being accurately represented in the media.
Yeah. And if they are in the novellas, they're usually like a maid or a butler or something.
Yeah. Which just again goes back to the bigger picture about how the black community is seen around the world. And yeah, it exists in our families. Like my family is so opposed to being out in the sun for too long because then you'll get darker, and it's like, what's so bad about getting darker? Like
Mm.
that's our skin color. That's like our skin was
Yes.
made to be like that.
So my mom calls me güerito, which is like that I'm white complexion because both of my sisters are darker skin color. And then come me, and she's like my güero and this and that. And yes, when I went to the beach, I got pretty brown. And she was like, "What happened to you?" And I'm like, I'm still me. This is just a biological change because of the sun rays. But that's it. It's just that, yeah, the colorism exists, and it's shameful, but we're getting there. Like, touching back on generations, Gen Z, man, those are the bravest people that I know. They literally don't give a fuck. They are breaking generational curses. They are calling inappropriate behaviors out. Like, I am very proud of them, and I feel that we can all learn from different generations.
Yeah. And I will say this about some of the conversations I hear,
Mhm.
in my opinion, go a little too far because they start again gatekeeping
Yes.
Latino culture.
Hmm.
And yes, we know that the lighter complected Latinos,
Hmm.
they have a privilege in the world that the darker
Hmm.
complected ones do not.
Yeah.
But some of these people just automatically go after the lighter complected ones, and
Hmm.
they might have not said anything bad or anything wrong,
Hmm.
but all of a sudden they're being attacked because they're like, you
Their
don't know this.
privilege.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, that doesn't diminish that they are Latino. Like, it's still their
Yes.
culture as well.
I do agree with that 100%. And I will say this, reflecting back, for example, I had never gone to college. I had never taken, sociology, all these courses. And I think it comes to you as shock value because I feel that they come from a place of passion. It's gatekeeping is, you get passionate about certain issues. Um, when I was in college and I graduated and I found out stuff that I never knew about, like, for example, racism. I never experienced it because I've never been outside of the valley. I never knew about it. But when you start seeing documentaries and reading articles and all this stuff, it's like, what the fuck? It comes to you as shock value, and you want to speak out, you want to advocate for others. So it, including when I started social work, I wanted to be a hero for everyone. Like, I want to be a hero for my kiddos and foster care and stuff like that. And there's institutions that have been in place that prevent you from doing what is supposed to be done. And there's a procedure for everything, and that's just the way the world works. And I feel that my passion hasn't died. I am still aware of the changes that I can do with whatever population that I'm working with. Um, but I also have to be very aware of how the world works. Now, if it's something that's unethical or something that I know is just plain out wrong, then that's your moment to gatekeep. I feel that there's limits for everything. There has to be balance with everything. And the same thing is for gatekeeping. I don't think they're coming out of a place of malice. I just feel that they're very passionate during that time. And the more you're exposed to the world and how the world works, you start like chilling, like, okay, um, this is what, you have to work at the pace that the world is going. So once they start realizing that, they kind of start like stepping back and being like, you know what, I can make changes. And being loud is not bad. I feel that being loud and being rowdy and whatever it may be, other terms to use, it brings on change. We've seen it with the LGBT community. We've seen it with the AIDS crisis. We've seen it with feminism. We've seen it with the Black population. It wasn't until they started to incorporate themselves into schools, and Rosa Parks not moving from her seat. All these gatekeepers brought change. So I feel that there's a balance, but when you have to be loud and stand your ground, you need to. Um, but it also, like, if I were to be a gatekeeper of, this Latinx and stuff like this, it's not very, what word do I use? It's not very critical for me because I don't see myself affected by it. I identify as a cisgendered gay male, so I don't have an issue with being called Latino or Latina or anything like that. But if I find myself in a space where I know that, you know, I have a trans individual, I'm gonna respect it. So there has to be balance with gatekeeping. You have to step back and be like, okay, because at the point that you get really loud, you're making it about yourself. I
Mhm.
feel that you kind of lose focus of what your message is, and people interpret that as, being snotty or bratty or persnickety or whatever it may be. Um, and I forgot where I was going with this, but I'm going back to my point. Balance. Balance is really important all the time.
And you mentioned something in that in your point was that like you mentioned how you don't experience race like us that we're here living in the valley,
Hmm.
which is lower Texas, close to the border,
Yes.
that we don't experience the racism until we go further up north. So that brings me to like the point of not only does colorism exist, but just plain out racism exists so much in our community that doesn't get called out because they people feel like, well, since we're not exposed to it, we don't have a say. Not that we don't have a say in it, but we don't
Hmm.
want to say anything about it. Like a few years ago when the protests were going on in I think 2020,
Yes, yes,
um,
yes.
and people here wanted to start forming protests as well, and just in support of the Black community.
Yes.
And do you remember when the man with the chainsaw was chasing down people in downtown? You never saw that?
Wait, yes, yes, I do remember
Yeah.
that. Yes, that was unfortunate. But I remember that I actually participated in that protest. I was there within my banner and everything.
Hmm.
Because yes, it's unfortunate that we have institutions, police, National Guard, whatever, trying to bring down the voice of the people. Was this what was the issue? I think there were several things. So I know that it
Wasn't it
was
George Floyd?
George Floyd and the whole issue with what's that town that had no access to water?
Flint,
Uh,
Flint, Michigan.
Flint, Michigan. There you go. And all these issues are affecting this certain population. So that's why the Black Lives Matter movement started, because it does matter. And
And
the
people don't
racism.
realize people don't realize that the Black Lives Matter movement or just any progress in the Black community
Mhm.
does not only benefit them, it benefits us as well because uh, it's the skin color, the darker skin color, the brown tones and stuff. That's who's being targeted, not just because
Yes.
they're Black. And maybe this might be a little bit extreme, but baby
Mhm.
boy, baby girl, take your brown ass up north and see if you're not racially profiled as well. Like
Yes.
just because we
Yes.
live here in the valley, we're not exposed to it. Everybody is
Mhm.
Latino for the most part. It's like as soon as you cross the checkpoint, you're a target. And
Mhm.
that's what people need to realize is that if we're being involved in protests and stuff, it's not because we're very aware that we don't experience here. It's because there's
Yeah.
people around the country that do experience it. People like you, brown skinned people, whether they be Latino or Black, that they have to deal with it. And we should support them with our voices.
Of course, we definitely should. And you don't even have to travel that far up north. I mean, you go to Austin, all you see is predominantly white people. It's getting heavily gentrified. It used to be a haven for immigrants because they would find, job opportunities and everything. And now it's become metro. It's always been a metropolitan city, but that is white dominated. Not only that, but again, institutions coming in, and I go to Austin and I'm like, where are my people at? I don't want to say you feel uncomfortable. I really don't. Um, but it's just it's a different dynamic, and I feel that all these, you know, like you said, colorism in the valley, it's very present. And I feel that all of that comes from ignorance, and ignorance is just not having the information, you not being exposed to the truth of the world, because your reality is subjective to where you're from. So you're right, you know, just step out of your zone and you'll see a difference. Something that I noticed when I was traveling to Denver, Colorado, I was minding my business once again, getting my key to my hotel room, and this white man starts screaming at a at the clerk, at the receptionist, which was a person of color. And I was just standing there like I wanted to say something so bad. And I should have, but it's a live and learn, you know. It's like I had never found myself in the situation, so I was just like, what the fuck do I do, right? But then eventually the person of color was able to, you know, tell this man, like, you need to talk to me a certain way or I'm not going to listen to you. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Also, let's talk about how brave white people are, because I was at work the other day and it was an elderly white man,
Hmm.
and he was looking for a product. So we're helping him out. I was me and another
Hmm.
coworker that is, I'm not sure if he's white or white passing, but either
Hmm.
way. So we were helping him out and we couldn't find the product he was looking for. And he said, okay. And
Hmm.
I explained to him that it could be because of shortages that we've been having with everything going on
Hmm.
around the world.
Yeah.
That's probably why we don't have the product.
Yes.
He proceeds to say, let's go, Brandon. Am I right? And I was like, not this. Like, you're not
Let's
gonna,
go what? Let's go
let's
what?
go,
What?
Brandon. Which have you heard like it's a anti Joe Biden thing. The let's go, Brandon.
Oh, okay. I get it.
Yeah. And it's like, sir, I know you're not gonna stand next to me with my brown Latino nopal in my forehead, and you're gonna try to like anti Democrat me, like make an anti-democratic statement. Like,
Hmm.
how did you think that was gonna play out for
Yeah.
you?
That's interesting because political affiliations have more to do with your beliefs, which kicks back to white privilege. You know, they haven't had issues. I'm pretty sure they have, but when it comes to systemic racism, you know, usually they don't have trouble. You know, they've never had trouble. This nation built itself up by the sacrifice of the Black community, the Native Americans, the
The
Latino
exploitation.
population, the exploitation. You know, and I honestly believe, because this, I have white friends, I have white acquaintances,
Mhm.
and you know, they live in a a bubble. Or I don't want to take away from their experience, because all they ever did to me was treat me right all the time. But I think that it was because, you know, I am English speaking, I'm able to communicate with them and everything, but they're just so much more brave. It's like, I just feel that there is fewer consequences to them. And again, that goes back to the biases. If I get in trouble at work, I might get in trouble 3 times. I'm more likely to get in trouble and get written up for a mistake that I did, which I never do mistakes. Anyways, but flip the table. You know, if somebody made a mistake, it's like a white person makes a mistake. It's like, you know, it's like, it happens. Don't worry about it. And if it were to be me, it'll be more like a coaching, or at least that's how I feel.
Mhm.
Um, it's
Yeah.
sad, but
It's
for
like,
example, where I work at,
mhm.
leadership, guess their color, guess their guess. Take a lucky
Well, I mean, we
guess.
don't even have to. Well, I don't have to ask if you're saying it like
Mhm.
that. I know.
Yeah,
And
you know, so it's just like
and
something funny. Uh-huh.
I have the same thoughts about like the politics here in the valley. Is like, why are we allowing white men to be the, like, mayors and leaders and stuff when they don't represent the area, you know?
Yeah. Hmm.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Um, I was gonna say something. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah. So in my previous job, not this one, uh, it was really funny that one of the clinicians pointed out to one of the deputy directors. I was like, "How come leadership is all white?" Within a week, they brought a Hispanic over to the leadership team, and I was like, "That's fucking hilarious." You know, somebody, a white person, called them out, like a white clinician who speaks fluent Spanish, called them out. Goes to say that that person, just for the fact that they were white and they made that comment, that they
Mhm.
brought in a Hispanic director to the facility. So it just goes back to prove that, you know, there's privilege in skin color.
Yeah, because if that would have came from a brown skin
They
Latino,
were like,
it
oh,
yeah, it might have not been
mm-hmm,
received.
yeah.
And so for the next subject is it's not something I have much experience in because again, I
Mm-hmm,
was kind of displaced as I moved. I
mm-hmm,
grew up in a different area, but maybe it's something that you have experienced, and that's being Latino, but also being gay. Um, like I said, for me, I don't feel like I experienced much of a
mm-hmm,
clash of the worlds, but I know for a
mm-hmm.
lot of people they do experience that. Was that something
Yes.
that you experienced?
I have a question. So for example, do you, this recording, like, do you edit it or it just goes like that into the internet?
I can edit it.
Okay, because I want to give a shout out real quick.
Okay.
So like I said, when I was in El Paso working. My leader, her name is Amanda. Of course, she's white. She was amazing, and I loved her. One time, we found ourselves in a situation where they wanted to give us extra work
Hmm.
that was not our responsibility. And I'm a person that's there to work, so I do what you tell me to do, you know. And for her, when she heard that they were giving us more work and that we were working hard to get whatever information they needed, she was like, no. She's like, that's not their responsibility. They're not gonna do it. So she stood up for us, and I was very thankful for her for that. So it's just, this is just a little shout out to Amanda. Thank you, my white ally. Uh, I love her. I love her. She's amazing. Like I said, I met wonderful, wonderful, wonderful white people. Um, but
Not that
yes,
statement.
not that statement. Yeah. So your question was about gay Latinos, right? So
Mhm.
what was your question again regarding that?
Just did you experience any like hardships because you were Latino and being gay, growing up gay?
We're gonna open Pandora's box of trauma. Okay. Yes, I had a difficult time growing up, not because of familial issues or anything like that. It was just a lot of hate, a lot of internalized hate. I didn't want to be gay. I didn't want to like boys. I had to be careful with my mannerisms. I had to be careful with the way I spoke. I had to be careful how I came across. I mean, it was lonely. Why lie? It was lonely growing up gay. And at that, like, I didn't even know what the fuck. I just didn't know what the fuck was that. So yes, a lot of hardship. It wasn't until the age of 21 that I had an eye-opening experience. Mind you, I was like the triple threat. I was brown, gay, and Christian, like a hardcore Christian, cult hardcore Christian. So, you know, that just that message that they give out in religion, you know, a man with man equals death, or you're gonna go to hell, that replayed in my head forever. And it got to the point, I was around 15, 16, that I would pray to God to take the gay away. Because at that point, like, I realized I don't find women attractive. I like dick.
Mhm.
So trying to pray the gay away, um, it wasn't pretty. And now I find myself released from the shackles of institutions like religion and culture. There's always good components from both, but I feel that when you're not true to yourself, you end up with depression, with anxiety, with all kinds of, you know, psychological issues. Um, So yes, it was hard growing up. At the age of 21, I was honest with myself and I told myself I am gay. I like men, and out of anger and spite towards my father, who I love very dearly, he's grown, I've grown. I came out to both of my parents. It wasn't pretty, but after that, that was my catalyst for change. It was out in the air. They knew, other people knew. The only people that didn't know were my parents. And after I had that release, I found out that, my parents were making questions about me to my sisters or other people. And it's like, I'm right here. Ask me, I'm the expert of my own life. So had to process a lot of anger, which I didn't even know I was angry because religion has this, or Christianity, religion, whatever, has this tendency of saying like, worry not because God will take care of you. God will take care of all your issues. But it's like, this is not an issue. This is who I am, you know? So at the age of 21, I went to group therapy because it was part of an assignment for social work. And on the second session, I had this breakthrough because, so this is called creative journalism, expressive arts. You're journaling and painting and pasting all this stuff, and it's fun, right? The second session, it was speak to your inner child, what would you tell your inner child? What would the you from now tell to yourself as a child, and I started writing stuff that I was going to tell myself, and it was interesting because the to spark that emotion, the theme was draw yourself or paint yourself in a place that you loved growing up or that you found, solace or whatever. And I painted myself, drew myself with crayons and everything in my grandfather's backyard, which was full of trees. And I love spending my time there. And I was a weird kid. So I had like this little crocodile toy plastic, right? I tied like a rope around it and I was pulling it around like if it was my pet. And that was my place. That's where I was really happy as a child. And the questions were like, what would you tell yourself now if you know, and I was a very obedient kid. I was very by the rules. I had very strict parents, more my dad than my mother. And I told myself, I wish I had broken more rules. I wish I had, been honest with myself. And the facilitator starts making all these questions. And she's like, and you write down the answers, but she started saying, right now, you might be feeling real happy, you might be feeling sad. When she said the word angry, you might be feeling angry. I don't know what the fuck happened, bro, but I literally froze and my mind clicked and I was like, what the fuck? I am angry. And I had never been familiar with anger because Christianity gaslights you. It gaslights your emotions, or at least that was my experience. And after being in touch with how I felt and speaking to my parents about how I felt, it's been a fucking journey, bro. It's been a journey. I've had the conversation with my mother, and it's very harsh, but it's a truth. And it's a hill that I'm willing to die on. That I literally had to tell her, this is what I experienced as a child. This is what you don't know about me. And I'm telling you right now, if you don't accept me 100% for who I am, I'd rather not have you in my life. And it sounds horrible, but it's the truth. I don't want to be in a space where my being, where myself is not going to be accepted at 100%. So it's been a journey. It was difficult growing up. But I'm in a really, really good place now mentally because I've come to terms with who I am. And I don't think of going ever back to wherever I was. And I remind myself every day, look at how far you've made it. So the difficulties that we experience as children shape you into who you are in the present. And I use that as a reflection. Had I not been through those experiences, I would not be a social worker. Honestly, honest to God, like the reason I went into this field of work is because I wanted to help individuals that went through the same thing that I did. I want to tell our youth that, hey, there is nothing wrong with you at all. Like, you were born this way, and there's nothing you can do about that. So yeah, it was difficult, but we're in a good place and we happy. So yeah, difficult, but made me into who I am today. So I'm happy.
Oh, that's always a good thing to hear.
Mhm.
All right. Well, I think that's all of our topics that we had to. I mean, I could get into some more, but this is the Latino
Uh-huh.
episode. It's not the gay
Yes.
episode. It's not
Hmm.
the, but
Hmm.
so thank you so much for joining me on this
You're welcome.
episode.
Thank
Uh,
you for inviting me.
it was nice hearing your point of view from from growing up as Latino. Do you want
Yes.
to plug yourself? Anything? Do you want to give anybody your Insta or whatever?
My Insta, oh, of course. So follow me on Instagram. It's fucking weird, I know. Hopefully they can get it. Maybe you can type it out for me, please. It is my Insta handle is eclectichomosapien. My Twitter is eclectichomo, and you can find me on Facebook as Florencio Garza. Um, I hope you really enjoy our little blog video. I enjoyed it. Um, and
Not
I hope to
little
see you in the
vlog videos,
valley.
sir. It's a
What's it called?
podcast.
A podcast. Sorry. I don't know what to call it, but I wish to see you when I go back to the valley. Maybe grab a bite or a drink or something.
Yeah, we need to do something. Also, I want to point this out that some of you guys, even if you're not from the valley, some of you guys
Uh-huh.
may know Florencio from his little TikTok that blew up,
Oh my God,
where he
Dora, of course.
who you play Dora, right? Or who did
Yeah, I
you
played
play?
Dora. It was
Yeah.
Dora. It was Dora. But when I say, I was like, I cannot stand this puta.
uh,
Hey, baby girl. Mwah.
how many
That was the guy.
like likes and plays did that get?
Bro, shit, I don't know, but I want to say that it probably got to 1 million views because Edgar, which is my friend Rosita from the Dora universe, he had a lot of retweets on that shit, and even like the creator of that original meme reached out and retweeted, and I think I saw it like on Snap stories, and I was like, what the fuck. So it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah, I saw it before. Like, I don't know where I think I saw it on TikTok or something, and I was like, I
Uh-huh.
know, I know
Oh
him.
my
Like,
god, I know him.
yeah. And then
Yeah,
I had messaged you about it, but yeah, that's
yeah.
it. But okay, again, thank you so much, and
Thank
that is it,
you.
guys. Everybody that if you're watching this, if you're listening to it, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Spotify. Share the episode, please. Share it with your friends. Everybody, share it with your fellow Latinos, just to give some more awareness and so they could be less ignorant about certain subjects.
Yes, definitely.
Uh, but yeah, thank you everybody for listening.
Remember, you cannot make people change. Change has to start with them. So it's not your responsibility to make other people change. If you want to live a happy life, mind your business. If you're doing things right, that's all that matters.
Mind your business sometimes.
Sometimes, okay, yes.
Yeah. Speak
Sometimes.
out other times.
Yes, sir.